tonight we have with us Brandon Barclay. He's going to be talking about challenging journeys, and I don't want to paint a picture for him, so I'm going to turn it over to him now. Not a support group. I want everybody to be aware of that. Anything you share here is not like Vegas. It could get out of the room.
Okay.
So make sure that when we're in the conversation, don't reveal too much that you don't want to reveal. I'll put it that way. Oh, and the last thing, this one is the one I always forget. Much though we would love everybody in this room to have access to psychedelics legally, they're not legal, and we don't allow them to be sold in our meetings or sourced in our meetings. So bottom line is, please don't try to source your psychedelics here. We can't allow that to happen. It's against our policy as an organization. Okay, now I'm done.
Thanks, Billy. Good evening, everybody. It's such a pleasure to get to be in this space and share my experience, to be asked by Billy and TPS to talk for a little bit and help hold this container. Can everybody at the far end of the room hear me all right? Do you want to shut that door, maybe? Just put a little bit of outside noise going on there. Thank you. Perfect. So again, my name is Brandon Barclay. I've been in Portland for about 14 years now. I'm a nutritional detox specialist. I also work with clients who are coming through addiction, so I'm an addiction recovery integration coach. And with that, I also do psychedelic preparation and integration coaching. So I'll work with clients who are preparing for or on the integration side of the journey process. And I've had a private practice here in Portland for about 1.5 years now. My deep dive with psychedelics started about 6 years ago, and I'll get into that a little bit more. I want to take just a moment and really for myself, but come on in.
Welcome.
Thank you. Can we take those seats over there?
Definitely. I want to take just a second as we get started and allow everybody to kind of drop into the space. This is almost more for me than it is for you, but I invite you to join me in doing this. Just to take a few deep breaths, allow yourself to ground, allow the energy to come down from your head and settle into your heart space, into your belly. So just take a couple deep breaths.
Welcome.
And one more breath, just to allow myself to settle. So along with the coaching work that I do, I'm also a combo practitioner. I help hold the Rainbow Integration Circle, which is the LGBTQ integration space here in Portland. I co-host that space with another person, Avery Dean Swift. And I have a passion for helping people prepare for and integrate their experiences with psychedelics. My journey in deep dive, where I got really passionate about psychedelics, came through the avenue of ayahuasca and kind of traditional Peruvian plant medicine. I got introduced to a lineage and a path called the vegetalismo, and I got fortunate enough to be introduced to a family in a lineage that is the Quechua-Lenistas primarily, and have spent a fair amount of time in Peru studying down there. I spent a year abroad, 6 months, specifically doing my own diet work, doing diets in isolation, and then I found myself working at a medicine center outside of Iquitos. So I was working at a medicine center, facilitating, I was a general manager on site, so I was helping guests who were coming in from all over the world feel comfortable in that space, as comfortable as you can be when you're in the jungle. and getting bitten by mosquitoes and experiencing things that you've never experienced before. And so I got a lot of time in the ceremony space working with people who are going through pretty transformative experiences. My particular interest with plant medicine is more along the lines of traditional diet work with ayahuasca. And there's all sorts of ranges that you can kind of dive into in the realm of ayahuasca. So mine is kind of specific, and also strict and somewhat intense in the way that the work that I've pursued is. But that's informed me in a lot of ways, and the variety of experiences that can be had when you're working with plant medicine. And so I shared just a little bit about what my experience is so that you understand the perspective that I'm coming from. You know, the topic of the conversation tonight is challenging experiences and journeys, what those can be like, how we move through them. And so I want you to understand that the way that I'm going to approach this is from my experience in working deeply with ayahuasca. I think that it's very applicable to most strong psychedelics. It's very applicable to mushrooms, DMT, LSD, and all of those are going to have their own nuanced experiences. So, you know, I'm not claiming to be the expert on all realms of psychedelics and what those experiences might elicit for you, but I think the power of what we have to offer here tonight is applicable to all of them. So I just wanted to be really clear that, you know, I'm not claiming to be the expert on all of these fields. My area of exposure is pretty fine-tuned in the realm of plant medicine. So I'll say that I do have a little table in the back. So if you feel inclined at the end of the conversation to stay in touch with me, feel free to put your name and email address down on there, and maybe once or twice a year I send out a newsletter to my mailing list. And there's also a way you can reach out to me if you feel like it, grab a business card, what have you. And I really want to acknowledge that a lot of the wisdom and the traditions that we are experiencing today come from Indigenous communities. I'm really honored and I feel so lucky to be learning from a lineage and a tradition that goes back a very long time. And of also the medicine center that I was working at is kind of a mixture of Western practice with traditional teachings. And so really the root for this and the root of work with ayahuasca comes from Indigenous lineages. And so I just want to bring that into this space and acknowledge that, you know, we're holding and being passed on wisdom from these wisdom holders that, you know, their skin is not the same color as mine. I travel down there as a guest and, you know, get invited into these homes, and so I just feel like it's important to acknowledge that, you know, these teachings, this path that I'm following is not one that I'm specifically native to, but I've been really blessed in being welcomed into it as my own family. So, yeah, you got kind of where my perspective is coming from. I'm not a doctor, and as we get into the dialogue and the conversation portion of the evening, please understand that most people in this room are also probably not doctors. So the information that gets shared, and if you are a doctor, that's great. But as the information gets shared, just understand that it may be comfortable and supportive for you, and you may find that it doesn't fit what is happening for you or what your experience is. And so, you know, take what works and leave what doesn't. And I really encourage you to do your own research and read books and talk to people and have conversations so that you feel really prepared to engage with psychedelics and are supported in the ways that you need to be able to do that. And there's a ton of information on the internet, of course, and YouTube. But just make sure you're getting a diverse array of sources. People that you trust, people that you know have experience with these medicines, to make sure that you're going to have a safe experience. So one of the things I love about this conversation and what PPS is doing is that the power of community is so strong. It's through the multitude of experiences and the perspectives that everybody's going to bring into this conversation when we open up this dialogue that's really going to be more informative than what I can personally just bring to you. And so I really encourage you to gain community if you don't have it already. Engage with the Portland Psychedelic Society. Build your own community or with your family. And share knowledge, share these experiences, and really allow that to support you in these processes. This journey work is not just done in the moment that you're taking your mushroom journey or your ayahuasca journey. The experience really stretches before and after those. And so if you have a strong community of support that's there to help reassure you, to comfort you, just to give you nice snuggly hugs and cuddles when you come out of a ceremony, that can be so helpful in your ability to ground in what you gain from these experiences. So I really believe in the power of community. I really am thankful for PPS and the people that make PPS work. It's a lot of effort. Please donate if you have the capacity to. These rooms cost money. I know how much it costs to rent one of these spaces for a couple of hours. It's not cheap. And we have such a sweet thing. I think the Portland Psychedelic Society is the largest psychedelic society in the country. So, is that?
San Francisco's.
They are bigger.
We're number 2.
Okay, second largest in the country. If San Francisco is the largest, we're doing pretty good. So, I heard that we were larger, but I don't know that for sure. Okay. So yeah, engage and support the community and build your own community. I think it's so valuable and so important when it comes to this work. Made it through page 1. So one of my favorite quotes, and this is by Mark Twain, and I think it's so applicable to this work, and I'll start to explain a little bit more about that as we go on here. But Mark Twain said, "I've lived through some terrible things in my life, some of which actually happened." Yeah, and as you can imagine, in an experience with psychedelics, it can feel so real. And I think it's important for us to remember, we prescribe the meaning to some of these experiences. And so as hard and as difficult and as challenging and as real as they can feel, what really happened and being able to step back from that and ask that question. So I was gonna do a little thing on confidentiality, but you kind of covered that. When we get into the general sharing section, just be conscious of what you share if you don't want it shared. I do generally ask in the container that if somebody shares something that is personal, that you get permission from them to either talk to them about it or to share what they may have shared. So that's just a general confidentiality container space that I like to hold. You're welcome to come to me and have conversations about anything that we cover tonight. So feel free to come up to me afterwards or request another time to have a dialogue. I'm totally open in that way. And to go ahead and get started on the topic for tonight and challenging journeys, the most important thing to me when it comes to journey work is the preparation process and how we prepare ourselves and our space can have such an impact on the experience itself. So this may not be exactly what a challenging journey consists of, but how we prepare our bodies, if we're eating well, if we're sleeping well, if we're well rested, what we're exposing ourselves to in the day of or the day before, what kind of movies are we watching, what kind of books are we reading. All of these things are going to kind of roll up to the experience that you have for the journey. A short example that I have is I just took a group to Peru in December. We did a 10-day diet, and seven days is in a fast. You're in isolation, it's very quiet, you have a lot of time. We recommend not reading, but some people do. And one of the participants was reading a book on Holocaust survivor. And I wasn't aware that that was the book of choice that we had with him. But he started to share that he was having a lot of violence occur in his experiences and in his visions and in his dreams. And it wasn't until after the diet closed that we found out that this was his book of choice. And it seemed very logical, right? That you're reading a very intense book about a very intense part of time, and it was nonfiction, and I'm sure that it's a fantastic book to read. But what's happening in our current day-to-day realities is going to inform our experiences with plant medicine or psychedelics. And we're extremely susceptible to the environment. So if you're watching horror movies or Saw 3 or something before you go in for a journey, you very well could have visuals or sensations or experiences like that show up in your journey. So part of preparation for me is preparing our mental space, our emotional space, making sure that we are clearing out and cleaning the environment in the best way that we can. And so that'll include the kind of movies that you watch, the kind of news that you're exposing yourself to, what you're reading. And I would say lean into the things that are going to support the development of what you're after. Your intention, if you have a specific intention, maybe start looking at or reading books that are positive, motivational, or more pertaining to the work that you're trying to get out of journeying and your work with psychedelics, if you have a specific intention like that. If you're going on a journey and you're just asking for a nice afternoon, you're going for a hike, you just kind of want to be connected to nature, do the preparation work that's going to allow you to experience that. Start taking time before your journey to either be outside or connect with your houseplants, whatever that might feel like for you, but set yourself up for success in that way. Take that time before your journey to eat well. Notice the food that you're eating. In the tradition that I come from, we are very particular about the diet that we have a week or 2 weeks before we start a ceremony. And that's because all of the food that we're bringing into our body, all of that energy informs and has an impact on the actual experience with the medicine. Some foods will actually mute your experience and keep you more grounded so that you don't have as high of an experience. Some foods will actually just make you nauseous, and they don't work well with some medicines. So it's important to have some consciousness around what it is that you're putting in your body, because that energetic imprint is going to come through in your ceremony. And I believe that that's going to be true with ayahuasca or psilocybin or LSD, and I would say even DMT, because it is your intention that you're putting into your ceremony. I myself find that the more work that I put into preparing for a ceremony, the more I get out of the ceremony itself. And you'll see all sorts of stuff online that the food doesn't matter, people eat cheeseburgers before they go in for an ayahuasca ceremony and it wasn't a big deal. And that's great, if it didn't affect them or it didn't mean anything for them. But I personally find that, yeah, come on up.
Come on up. We got a seat.
All right, thank you. Sorry.
But I personally find that the more intention I put into preparing for the experience, the more I get out of the experience itself. And generally with ayahuasca, you're probably going to be going to a specific setting, a place. There might be a group. You've got a facilitator, somebody that's pouring the medicine for you. That container is kind of cared for in a very specific way. But if you're doing journey work at home or with your friends, you're using psilocybin or whatever your choice is, what does your environment look like? Is the house clean? You got dirty dishes and empty things like scattered all over the place? What does that look like? That's going to transfer into your experience. So that clutter or that mess can come into your experience as chaos in your mental preparation or your mental experience. So take that time to clean up. It's going to allow you freedom energetically to go deeper into the experience that you're looking for. And you're not going to be so tied up in the environmental impacts that can occur from, a messy house or, instead of taking the time to go outside and be in nature, you're having your journey in your basement and, you got your stacks of stuff all over the place. Pretty different experience, and that's going to directly translate to the experience that you're having. So your environment, preparing your environment is just as big as preparing your internal environment, preparing your body and your mind. I'm a big proponent of having intention when we're working with these medicines. I don't think it's always necessary. I think sometimes we can just go to have a good time. And what people are seeking in working with psychedelics is what people are seeking in working with psychedelics. And there's as many different good reasons to work with psychedelics as there are people that are looking to have them. But through my work with ayahuasca and the way that I've come into this, intention is such a big part of it for us. And being clear to the reason that we're engaging with these medicines. Do I have an intention? And what is that? It can be as simple as, I just want to have a beautiful day on the beach. I want to see the sun shine like I don't normally see it shine. I want to have appreciation for, the green in the grass or the green in the trees like I don't normally have. But I find that if I can't come up with an intention for engaging with these medicines, what am I going after? I guess for me, I like to invite you to make sure that, is this positive, adding value to your life, or are we escaping something? And then there's also the side where, we may have started to engage with these medicines intentionally. We get, we start our work, as I call it, that I'm doing, but I'm not doing the integration work to actually create the change in my life that I'm finding in the journeys themselves. And the experience that can come from that, if we're not actually doing the work to integrate this into our lives, can be a repeat of experiences over and over. And so you might start to have a challenging experience or something that's coming to you in these journeys that seems to be on repeat, almost like a broken record. And that can be an indicator that we're not integrating or learning or growing from the experiences themselves. So those are, I guess that kind of covers my most poignant points about preparation. I feel really strongly that preparation has a direct impact on the type of experience you're going to have with these medicines. I feel like the more prepared you have been and the more time you have taken, not only is it going to be less likely that you have a challenging experience, but you're also going to be more prepared to work through a challenging experience if something comes up. And I guess to talk a little bit about what challenging experiences can be, or what I've seen or what I've experienced myself. The very first one that I can remember is I was 19 and it was like Halloween and decided to eat a bunch of mushrooms. And that's the quantity that I can describe was a bunch of mushrooms. And I remember being fairly out of sorts and uncomfortable, and at some point I realized that I was just sitting down eating mushrooms out of the bag. I had no idea how long I'd been sitting there. I had no idea how much I ate. And I was in a room of people that nobody seemed to be alarmed by it. Nobody stopped me, nobody questioned anything. And that turned into a very dark, and there's a long period of time that I was actually like blacked out for that I don't remember. And it was several days of me kind of coming back into my body. And I didn't have a support system there. I didn't have anybody to reassure me that I was okay. I didn't have anybody at the time that was even checking in, seeing that I was freely just eating mushrooms out of a bag and like out of my mind. So I didn't have a safe container, and I didn't have a safe community of people that would even support me, if they saw something like that. And that took me quite a while I didn't have any of these tools. Preparation, integration was not something that was in my mind. I was 19 and I was just experiencing and experimenting with drugs, and that was just the time in that was the time period for me. Very experimental stage, and so that's the first real difficult journey or trip that I had. For me, it lasted like 3 days before I could kind of come back and have conversations with people and felt like I was back in my own skin. And I was very cognizant not to do that again. I had that one clear memory of like I looked down and I'm just like eating these mushrooms, and so it was a pretty good wake up call for me. And it's not an experience that I would recommend for anybody, or that I would want anybody to have. I don't necessarily, other than the awareness of that can happen, I don't really think that I gained anything from that experience. And so that's a lot of like struggle to go through to not really get something out of it, I've had several experiences working with ayahuasca over the last 6 years, of like death experiences, where the feeling that I have died is all encompassing, that there's separation from my body, and that process of return and coming back, and even the experience in the moment of being okay with the process of death is a challenging one. The very first time I was pretty okay with it. I was very confused, thinking that, is this really what I came here to do? Did I come here to die? And then, thinking about my family, thinking about my partner, how are they going to be with this? And so there was like this questioning and confusion, but I felt completely safe. I felt safe in the container and the space that I was in, and I had this awareness to just trust that, everything would be taken care of. And so that was really a testament to me to the ability of the container that we set up for ourselves, or the environment that we're in, to be able to hold us through a difficult and challenging journey. You know, as the journey continued, I came back and realized that I wasn't dead. I remember my teacher coming over to me and asking how I'm doing. He says, "Brandon, yo, dude, how are you?" And my response was, "I'm not dead." And he says, "No, not yet." I'm like, "Oh, okay." You know, and I just lay there for a couple more hours, just like, you know, trying to make sense of what's going on. And that experience was really profound, and there were some other parts of that journey that were really profound. And it's taken me several years to actually kind of come to terms with what happened there. A lot of times in challenging journeys, the experience can feel so visceral and real that there's also an immediacy that comes with it. That, you know, action needs to happen right now, or this thing is taking place right now in this moment. And so when we have a challenging experience that we're facing, it may feel like we have to take action right then. And I can guarantee you that if you're in the middle of a mushroom journey, or an ayahuasca journey, or an LSD trip, that right then is probably not the right time to take action. You know, we encourage people, especially when we take people down to brew and we do this kind of very intense plant medicine work, to not make any life changes or big, still settling, right? The energy is still settling, the plants or, you know, whatever the medicine is that you worked with is still settling in the body. And you want to give yourself space to really come back to your body before making a life-changing decision. And calibrate and make sure that, you know, you're talking with people about it, that you're engaging with your community, with your support network, that you're not making a rash decision that is maybe overly informed by an experience that you had in the medicine. And so these challenging experiences can feel like, oh man, I have to take action right now. And you know, and maybe in some cases that's appropriate. But often that's a signal, that immediacy, the way that immediacy was described to me is it's very much the Western mind. That's really us having something that has been boiling up for so long that the mind is like, no, you need to take care of this. And really, it's probably something that we needed to take care of for a while. And so we have this spin on it that comes to us in these journeys that makes us think, oh man, I have to deal with this right now. And you know, yeah, you probably have to deal with these things. But make sure that you're doing it in a healthy way, that you're giving yourself the space and that you're getting support from your community so that you're not going to regret the decision that you made. And, you know, so the immediacy that can come from a challenging journey, I think is an important thing to keep in mind. Also understanding that what occurs is occurring in our minds. It can feel as real as, you know, the shoes on your feet. And this goes back to kind of what I was talking about with the movies or the books that you're reading. How your exposure to your environment is going to directly inform what's happening in your journey. And I can promise you, if you objectively look at an intense or challenging journey, or even any part of a good journey, I don't mean to say good or bad, but like a light experience or one that you found uplifting, if you step back and objectively look at it, you will be able to see where parts of your environment are informing that experience. And I think it's really important to remember, especially if you're in a challenging moment, that what you might be experiencing could very well be being informed by your environment or something that you've recently been exposed to. And it doesn't it doesn't always mean something. We are meaning-making machines. That's what we do as humans. We assign meaning to all the aspects of our life. Innately, nature is meaningless, but we prescribe the meaning of something. And so it's really important to also remember that we're prescribing the meaning of these experiences that we're having. And if it's a challenging one, it can be hard, but it can be so valuable to step back from it and objectively look at just what's happening without prescribing meaning to it. If we are too fast to say, oh, this means that, I need to move to California, or I need to, leave my partner, or, we go through this kind of wormhole of making these experiences or these visions mean something, that we can actually miss what's trying to come forward or trying to come out. So by taking a step back and looking at a challenging experience just for what it was, and either journaling about it after the fact, journal what actually happened, journal the specific visions that you saw, without saying that they meant something. And allowing that to come out will often create space for some other underlying meaning to come forward. So I strongly encourage us all in these experiences to be able to create enough space to objectively look at what's happening. In the moment, that can be really hard. That objective view is often something that can be done after we've made it through an experience. If you're in the middle of a challenging journey, coming back to your breath is going to keep you grounded, knowing that you're safe. As long as you are safe, if you've set yourself up in a safe container, if you're with people that are going to help keep you safe, reminding yourself that you're safe, coming back to your breath, drinking water can be an amazing tool, as simple as it sounds. Sometimes we have anxiety, or we're feeling our heart race, and even just the simple act of drinking water can help calm the system down and help reminds us that we're not actually in some fight or flight moment. So use your tools of meditation and that mindfulness cultivation, if you have them, to help ground you in a challenging experience that might be happening in the moment. I can't express enough how much your breath affects that. And for anybody, the next time that you're in a journey, notice the shift in your experience by just taking some deep breaths all the way down to your belly. And if you can kind of have a habit of doing that, you'll notice that it will immediately change what your experience is. And so if you're having a challenging journey, having that awareness just to come back to your breath and have awareness of your breath is really going to help you make it through that. With psychedelics, time is on our side. And I say that in a way to mean with time, it's going to pass. So the experience will pass, the moment is going to change, the intensity is going to dissipate at some point. And we just have to trust that what's happening is going to change. And the container that you have is going to really be a big proponent of how you're able to trust that process. Kind of rambled there for a good hot minute.
This would be the time to talk about something you look at your question.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I'm going to take a drink.
Got a hand up, please?